Bridegroom.
Bride and groom?
Yeah.
We got it. Thanks. Yeah. Clerk will call the roll.
Glenn Wheatley, County Judge.
Here.
Roy Charles Brooks, Commissioner Precinct 1.
Present.
Andy H. Wynn, Commissioner Precinct 2.
Here.
Gary Fickus, Commissioner Precinct 3.
Here.
J.D. Johnson, Commissioner Precinct 4.
Here.
Constitutes a quorum.
Thank you. Our invocation today will be delivered by Pastor Kent Benford from the Baker Boulevard Church of Christ in Fort Worth. Thank you very much for coming out today. After the invocation, please remain standing for our pledges.
Let's pray. Father God, we thank you so much for this day that you've given us. Father, we thank you for this day, and we pray that we would rejoice and be glad in all the blessings that you have filled our lives with. Father, we are blessed to be able to live in such a wonderful, amazing community in a great county. Thank you for all of these officials, Father, who govern us. We thank you for their dedication and their service to all the citizens who live here. We thank you for the talents that they've been blessed with. Father, I pray that you grant wisdom on all the men and women who participate in these proceedings today. We pray, Father, that you would guide them to make the best decisions possible for all of those of us who live here. Father, I thank you for all the blessings that you fill our lives with. Father, we know there are always things that we would like to see differently, but Father, help us never to take for granted those blessings that you have completely filled our lives with. We thank you for that, Father. We ask all this in the name of your Son, Jesus. Amen.
Amen.
Pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
Thank you, Pastor. Agenda announcements, Mr. Manius?
Thank you, John. Members of the court, we have several announcements relating to the agenda this morning. The first one is under the County Administrator section. It'll be item 8, 9, 5. I'm sorry, let's try it again. Item 9A5. This concerns human resources issues. That'll be considered after closed. Also, as it relates to the criminal district attorney, item 9F2, that is a consent item. There's revised court communication in your folder. There's a minor date change that we had to make and of no significance. And then finally on the agenda, court members under public health, item 9I2, we're going to hold that for 1 week. You'll see it again next week. Also, just several other announcements. Today at 2 o'clock in the Family Law Center, we have an IT steering committee meeting. Also, tonight in Arlington at the Arlington Sub-Courthouse at 6 p.m., we have a town hall meeting in Precinct 2 as it relates to the JPS proposed bond package. It'll be at the Sub-Courthouse. And Your Honor, if I could just take a moment, and members of the court, if I could just take a moment and ask David Brzezina with the Fort Worth Chamber of Commerce to come forward and make some presentations. I will note that he is on time this morning.
Just one other thing, you might also mention that on Wednesday, we also have a town hall meeting at the Mansfield. I believe that's in the City Council.
City Council, yes. And it starts at 6 o'clock also.
At 6 o'clock as well. It's right next door to the Mansfield Sub-Courthouse.
Mr. Brzezina.
Come on up, sir. How are you today?
Thank you, GK, very much for that kind introduction. Judge and members of the Commissioner's Court, as GK said, Mr. Manius said, we are here on time, and I am David Brzezina with the Fort Worth Chamber of Commerce, and I'm joined by our Chamber President, Bill Thornton, and our Manager of Economic Development, Erica Estrada. And we are here today to take a few moments on your agenda and to do a couple of things. One, to thank you for your leadership and your partnership on the recently announced Facebook project, the $1.2 billion Facebook project. We're also here today to memorialize that event by handing out crystal acrylic trophies, if you will, that are in the shape of the state of Texas for the 5 commissioners, for the administrator, and for Lisa McMillan. For those of you
Excuse
who-
me, crystal acrylic?
Glass.
You know,
New stuff, Roy.
it's the new stuff, yeah.
That's an oxymoron.
Tough crowd. Okay, so it's just acrylic. I'm sorry. I added an extra word. But if you don't tell anybody, they'll think it's crystal, okay? But, you know, Bill and I have been in this business for 26 years, and it's very seldom that you get to bring in a billion-dollar project from the outside world. You all did that. It's very seldom that you get to bring in a billion-dollar deal from the outside world, and it's very seldom that you get to have an expansion of $1.5 billion the next week with General Motors. So we want to say congratulations. Thank you for your partnership. Thank you for your leadership. We can always count on you.
Thank you, and for everything that the Chamber does. You're right, it was a fantastic week, starting off with the TCU-UNT announcement, then followed by the Facebook, then followed by the historic, the stuff going on out at, I know which Commissioner Johnson is very involved with, the North Side project, and then, you know, ending up with the 1.5 out at Arlington for the GM. You know, there's been a lot of discussion about Facebook and, you know, about the 40 jobs. I asked Ms. McMillan to kind of look at some of the other locations to get a feel for what it has meant for those areas. And in each one of those areas, what they're saying is those projects, which were all about about 500, $500 million, have generated thousands of jobs over the years. And so just as we expect to have happen here, yes, there may only be 40 people actually working for Facebook, but we expect and fully plan to see, you know, 4,000 or 5,000 jobs as a result of that.
Well, I would agree, Judge, and the Facebook reputation brings additional followers, not only in the data center space, but they're known for having the most difficult vetting and site selection process, period, as Lisa will attest. They're shrewd at what they do. I'll also add one more story. I was in New York last week with Governor Abbott and the Metro 8, the largest cities in Texas, and on the New York Stock Exchange floor where he got to ring the opening bell, he told everybody, including Kramer and David, whatever on CNBC, that we just landed the Facebook deal in Tarrant County in Fort Worth, Texas. So when the governor is talking about that, and in the same sentence, he also mentioned the General Motors. So Tarrant County and Fort Worth was being heard in New York on the New York Stock Exchange. So congratulations.
Thank you all very much. Thank you for your staff and the hard work that I know y'all do. And thank you for this nice crystal acrylic.
Crystal acrylic.
Court members, you have before you the minutes of our regular meeting of July the 7th.
Move for approval of the meeting minutes.
Second.
We have a motion, a second, any discussion? Please vote. Mr. Fickus, Commissioner Fickus. Motion passes unanimously. Commissioner Brooks, I believe you have a resolution.
I do, Your Honor, and this is a resolution in celebration of the extraordinary bravery of one of our deputy constables. Would you please read it into the record for me?
Whereas Tarrant County recognizes the heroic efforts of Chief David Dinez for his quick action in rescuing a fellow officer and a civilian from Lake Como in Fort Worth, Texas. And whereas on July the 1st, 2015, at approximately 10:20 a.m., Chief Dinez, okay, I'm going to get this one right before I mess it up. What? Denise. Okay, I'm not going to. Chief Denise was performing his regular duties in a marked Precinct 5 constable unit when he drove by 3300 Merrick Drive, and whereas Chief Denise observed a Fort Worth Police Department female officer removing her uniform and running into Lake Como in the direction of a man who was struggling to stay above water in the center of the lake, and whereas he observed several other males standing on the bank yelling at their friend that their friend was drowning, and whereas noticing that both the man and the Fort Worth officer were struggling to stay above water, without hesitation, Chief Dinez removed his carrier and gun belt, entered the Lake Como, and swam to the center of the lake to assist them in bringing both back to shore. Whereas Chief Dines displayed courage above and beyond the normal scope of his duties by swimming out into the center of the lake, knowing he is not a strong swimmer, and whereas the actions taken by Chief Dines on July the 1st, 2015, directly saved the life of both a civilian and a Fort Worth police officer. Now, therefore, be it resolved that we, the Commissioners Court of Tarrant County, are pleased to recognize Chief David Dines for his distinguished valor and service to the people of Tarrant County, in witness whereof we have herein to set our hands and cause the seal of Tarrant County to be affixed this 21st day of July 2015. We'll all...
I gotta say this before we take action on this resolution. There's been considerable news coverage about this particular incident, but the news coverage only focused on the Fort Worth officer and not the one who pulled both the officer and the victim out of the lake. So we're trying to correct that this morning by celebrating our own. And in that light, I move approval of the resolution.
Second.
4 seconds.
4 seconds.
Please vote. Motion obviously passes unanimously.
Chief Denise, would you join me at the podium, please? Chief Denise is the Chief Deputy in Constable Precinct 5, where Constable Ruben Garcia is the constable. Thank you for your extraordinary bravery and valor, and for, taking your job as seriously as possible, and for saving the lives of fellow law enforcement officers and fellow human beings. Rabbit. There you go. Chief, would you address
It can't be said enough of just the valor of going in. Those of us who are not strong swimmers understand that and know that, and we are very cautious around the water. And for you just to immediately put that aside and get in there is something, again, to be very, I admire very much. I admire very much. Thank you for what you did and for just not thinking about yourself, but just getting in there and doing whatever you could to save those individuals. We appreciate that very, very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chief.
Court members, you have before you the consent agenda.
Move approval. Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously. We have a public hearing today.
Good morning, Commissioners, Judge. Before I get started, I want to mention a couple of things. If you look on your court communique, there's a map that shows, this map is referring actually to the existing pavement conditions, not the striping or the signage out there. That's what this public hearing is going to entail. And also, second of all, I wanted to make note what's not shown on here is the northern half of this, actually from the middle of St. Francis north. That's actually in the city limits of Fort Worth. So with that being said, I'm going to amend a couple of things on this, what I'm requesting from you. St. Francis Road eastbound, we are requesting your permission or your approval to install, replace an existing stop sign with one stop sign. The other sign on the north side of the road is about 12 feet within the city limits of Fort Worth. We will be coordinating with them on that effort to have that installed. Also, the southbound Old Granbury Road to westbound St. Francis Road, again, that one is in the city of Fort Worth, so we're not going to be requesting that, but I will be coordinating with the city of Fort Worth on that yield sign. Also, Rocky Creek Park Road, that is entirely ours, so we're seeking your approval to install an additional stop sign with that. We thought it'd be a good time as we looked at the traffic movements out there to just redo this entire intersection. Previously, we've upgraded we coordinated with the Fort Worth Western Railroad to improve that railroad crossing there too, so we thought it'd be a good time just to do an all-out intersection improvement on this. So with that, I'm seeking your approval on those items.
This is a public hearing. I'll open the public hearing at this time and ask if there's anyone here wishing to speak to this matter. There being none, then I will close the public hearing and ask for any action that the court may wish to take.
I move approval of the action suggested by our Transportation Department. This is an unusual intersection with so many roads converging in such a short space of time, and we're going to do what we can to make it better.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor.
Manius? Excuse me.
think
I
you and
meant to do this.
You and I are about to say the same thing.
Yeah, I meant to do this back in the other comment, and I was distracted by the valor of our constable. This past week, we had an opportunity to be at our National Association of Counties annual conference, and at that conference, our own Roy Charles Brooks was elected to the position of second vice president by that conference, and is something that we should be very proud of. Commissioner Brooks ran a very good race. There were 3 other candidates in that race, and he did an excellent job and will be the second vice president, is the second vice president of NACO now. So again, congratulations, Commissioner.
This was a total team effort. Folks say that all the time, but it truly was. All of the Tarrant County folks who were present at the convention pitched in and helped, and even some non-Tarrant County folks like Reverend John Reed sitting back there in the back, who just came up on his own dime to help. Extraordinary effort, extraordinary campaign. I could not have done this without Judge Whitley's advice, and Tom Stallings' floor generalship, and Kathy and Rod and Jeanette and Amanda and Mo, who stayed behind to keep the office open while we were in North Carolina. So I thank the entire county family for your contributions to this effort. And I hope to make you proud.
Thank you, and congratulations, Commissioner. Mr. Manius.
So, Commissioner, that means that in 2 years, 3 years?
In 2 years, I'll be president of the National Association of Counties.
Congratulations. What that means is that in this sitting court then, 2 of the 5 members of this court have led the National Association within the last 6 or 7 years. That's a record. There's very few counties that I know of.
That's unparalleled in NACO. There have been, on occasion, 2 guys from the same county who chaired NACO, but there were like 25 years in between those 2 persons. For it to happen on the same court with both persons still sitting is, It's historic. It's never happened before in NACO.
Members of the court, we can go to the administrator section. On item 1, we're requesting that the court approve the naming of the oversized complex courtroom in the Tom Vandergriff Civil Courts Building in honor of Judge Charles J. Murphy.
I'll move approval.
Second. We have a motion, a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Members of the court, on item number 2, Mr. Mendez is going to make that presentation.
Good morning. This morning, we're going to be requesting that the court receive and file the final report from the legislative session that has just been over. He asked me to go through this page by page. If you don't, well, I won't do that to you. There were over 7,000 bills filed this last session. We tracked about 1,500 of them. Of those that made it through, 1,300 hit the governor's desk. And of those, we were tracking approximately 275. 42 of the final bills that made it through the House and Senate were vetoed by the governor. And I think on the whole, counties did pretty well in this session. We did have some big wins. We managed to fight off the appraisal and revenue cap proposals that were filed. We didn't start off the session very optimistic. Most county advocates thought we were going to be in the crosshairs as far as tax relief proposals that were made during the campaign season prior to the session. But we were successful with the help of our associations and it was a massive team effort. And I want to thank the court for their efforts on our behalf. Your good relationships with our delegation made my job very much easier than it could have been. I was welcome in every office. Whether or not our delegation agreed with our position, they at least listened to us on many of these larger issues. Some of the other things that we were successful in, more money for transportation, the end of diversions, fully funded LIRAP program, and hopefully with the passage of the constitutional amendment this fall, there will be additional funding coming in 2017 and in 2019 from sales tax revenue dedicated to transportation. We are seeing another $150 million dedicated to mental health services. A win particular to counties, oil and gas royalties on county right-of-way will now be coming back to the county instead of going to the state. That's a big win. Had that been in place from the year 2000, we would have seen an additional $14 million. This revenue, whatever that's going to be based on the price of oil and gas, will be dedicated for road maintenance on county roads. We did manage to fight off a huge unfunded mandate regarding jail video visitation and in-person versus in-person visitation requirements. We managed to get existing facilities that could not comply with that grandfathered out of that, so I consider that a very big win, especially for Tarrant County. We did have a few losses. A bill that would have improved the county energy transportation reinvestment zone effort that provided grants to counties for the damage based on oil and gas production. That bill was vetoed by the governor. Additionally, there wasn't any new monies appropriated for that effort, so there won't be any new grants, at least for this coming biennium. Juvenile probation funding took a hit to the tune of about $14 million. And we're still kind of weeding through that because they're saying that there's going to be a wash based on the regionalization of juvenile probation efforts. But I think Randy's looking at that pretty closely, and we'll see how that affects Tarrant County efforts. Indigent defense was kind of a wash. There is new dedicated GR going into indigent defense, which is unprecedented. It's typically fee-based funding of that. But they didn't increase the overall level of funding, so our needs are still largely being unmet there by the state. There are some things we are now working on based on the legislation that did pass. I want to mention a couple of these. House Bill 2398, which was the omnibus truancy bill, 77-page bill, largely shifting the responsibility for truancy back to the schools and outlining a very detailed process by which all municipal and JP courts and county courts must go through in the processing of truancy cases. It also has a provision in there that requires the county judge to appoint, along with the mayor of the largest city, a committee to make recommendations to all the school districts regarding policies and procedures to try to uniform those and sync those up. As it turns out, Tarrant County is kind of ahead of the curve on that. We recently did a report and formulated such a committee in the last couple of years, and so we have a report on the shelf that may actually meet all the requirements of this new legislation. We're investigating that right now to see if we can maybe just revamp that report and see if it meets the letter of the law, and we already know we're addressing the spirit of it.
So on that, what we probably need to do is set up a meeting with Mayor Price and
Yes,
myself in the next month or so and just get updated on that.
We're-
Is that
we're-
going to affect September 1?
The requirement for the recommendations going to the school districts don't go into effect until next January. So
Okay.
we've got some time to work on this.
Good.
Another one that we're working on presently, House Bill 1295, which is a disclosure of interested parties, a transparency issue, which is going to require all local governments to submit a certificate of interested parties, which is going to be designed by the Ethics Commission, based on everyone that the county must enter a contract with that gets approval by the Commissioner's Court, listing the interested parties that are working on those contracts to garner support for those contracts. The vendor has to give that certificate to us, and we forward it to the Ethics Commission. Of course, we've got a lot of questions about that. We've been working with the Purchasing Department and the District Attorney's Office. We've submitted a list of questions and concerns to the Ethics Commission. They are going to be developing the rules based on that legislation this fall. We anticipate that there will be some testimony offered by some of our personnel on that issue, so we've already initiated those conversations.
So if we do a bid with a corporation, then we have to inquire with that corporation as to whether they have any shareholder that owns a substantial, and I guess substantial is defined as 50% plus one?
Actually, they have to list everyone who was part of the solicitation of the contract. So it is a listing of all parties who had contact with Commissioner's Court, all parties who were negotiating with our purchasing departments, et cetera. And it's going to be a form that is not designed yet. That's part of what's going into the rulemaking process, is the design of that form and the rules by which we must operate under. And so we're trying to weigh in early on the issue.
This goes well beyond ownership of a company. It's almost anyone that touches it that touches us. So it's really complex, and quite frankly, the Ethics Commission, they've encouraged us to submit questions, which Mark has. And we've been working on this, but it's still very unclear on how what the form's going to look like and what it's going to include.
So if we're in a meeting and somebody from an engineering firm says, hey, I think we're going to put in a bid for this road, that's a communication that we have to disclose.
That's our understanding at this point. That's why we're trying to ask these questions early to find out if that does indeed qualify as someone who would need to be listed on this form.
I thought I understood you to say that the duty to disclose was on the part of the company.
Well, it is, but they have to submit the form to us before we can sign the contract with them. And then at that point, we send that on to the Ethics Commission, and they're going to keep a database of that. That's the understanding at this point.
So in effect, anytime we go out for an RFP, they have, in the process of that RFP, everybody who is submitting a form or submitting a bid under that would have to include that form with the RFP.
That's a very That's a good question, Judge, because we don't know if it applies just to all the bids or just the one that we enter into the contract with. Now, we have to make them aware that this is going to be a requirement, and what a lot of smaller counties are worried about is this is going to chase away vendors who don't want to make any of those disclosures. So we're asking those questions of the Ethics Commission.
Okay.
What's the bill number on that?
That was House Bill 1295.
Thank you.
That's all I have at this time. I'll ask the court unless there's any questions.
You know, I guess the one thing that I would kind of just add to what you said, you know, I think the legislature did do a lot of tax relief from a standpoint of some of the state, the franchise tax and some of those types of things. I think the real victory for us, and I think the reason we were able to, is that the whole emphasis on the revenue caps and the appraisal caps was really kind of going against local control. And I think a lot of the support we got from the legislature, basically to their credit, said local folks are elected by local folks. We are to let them control what's going on and not try to control them from Austin. And I very much appreciate them looking at it from that perspective, because we are all elected, and I appreciate them recognizing and realizing that local control is important, and if there's a problem with taxes back in their particular entity or in their particular community, the community should take care of that at that particular entry level. So I'm very appreciative of the way that did work out. Do I have a motion to receive and file?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you, Mark.
Members of the court, we have two remaining items. On item number 3, we're requesting an exception to the travel policy for the 342nd District Court.
Move for approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Finally, members of the court, on item 4, this is an exception to the travel policy on Criminal District Court number 3. Would like to make one correction on the court communication. It showed that the total cost of travel was $302.84. Actually, it was $394.20.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Ms. Glenn.
Good morning.
Good morning.
We have 4 items for the court this morning. The first item, we're asking the court to receive and file the personnel agenda.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to receive and file the personnel agenda. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Second item, we're asking the court to approve a waiver of terminal benefits for juvenile services. As explained in your court communique, the assistant manager for the juvenile case management system retired at the end of June. Mr. Turner is requesting a waiver of 194 vacation hours effective July 22nd at an estimated net cost to the general fund of a little more than $3,100, including fringe benefits.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Item number 3, we're asking for a waiver of terminal benefits, this time for information technology. The Associate Support Specialist retired at the end of June. Mr. Aofor is requesting a waiver. The net cost we're estimating to be approximately $5,000, including fringe benefits, and that impact is to the general fund.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
And finally, our 4th item, we're asking the court to approve an out-of-class pay extension for community development. You've seen this one actually 5 times previously. Ms. Ward is requesting an out-of-class pay extension for Ms. McGee. If approved, this will take us through the end of October. You'll recall that Ms. McGee assumed the responsibilities of Mr. Kramer when he left county service in 2014. There is no impact to the general fund. Ms. Ward wants you to know that she is awaiting her, the final budget from HUD before she can make a final decision about whether she'll have regular funding for this position.
Move for approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you. Vinnie?
Good morning, Your Honor, and members of
morning.
the court.
Good
Good morning, Dennis.
We have one item that we're requesting your approval today for interim financing for FY 2016 Ryan White Part D grant.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Beecham?
Good morning.
Good morning.
Morning, Jack.
We have 5 items for your consideration this morning. Our first item is a bid award recommendation for RFP 2015-105. This is for the development of the John D. and Catherine T. MacArthur Foundation Safety and Justice Challenge Round 1 Action Plan. Recommendation would be to award to Tarleton State University, amount of $22,031. If you approve this, we're seeking contract approval from the court.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Our second item is also a bid award recommendation for bid 2015-135, assigning a contract for mosquito control pesticide for outdoor residential and recreational area spraying. Recommendation would be toward a pre-enterprise basis, awarding to the primary, secondary, and alternate awards as shown in your court communique.
Move for approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Our third item, we're seeking approval from the court to cancel the contract award to Caldwell Country Ford for bid 2012-152. This is an annual contract for the purchase of hybrid vehicles, their portion, and bid 2014-165, our annual contract for the purchase of police package vehicles. Very simply, they were sent purchase orders in October for 6 Explorers for the DA's office and 2 vans, one for tax and the carpenter shop, which they claimed to lose. We were first told that our problem was with Ford Motor Company. After they cursed out my employee for about 30 minutes, we deemed this poor vendor performance. It will cost the county $7,914.95 to replace these vehicles. This is only the second time in the last 20 years we've ever requested to remove a vehicle vendor from our bidders list. Last time that happened was in '98, as I remember, with Grand Prairie Ford when you were county commissioner, when they lost police package vehicles. I also found out that they were exchanging incentive money and
They were doing what?
exchanging incentive, not applying the incentive money properly for Tarrant County's pricing. We called several times to seek information so we could make a good business decision to stay with them or not. And after they cursed my guy out, I recommend that we take them off the bidders list for 2 years.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Item number 4 is also a bid award recommendation for bid 2015-107, signing a contract for the purchase of pickups, vans, and utility vehicles. Our recommendation would be to award a per enterprise basis, awarding to the various number of primary vendors in section 1, 2, and 3 as shown in your court communique.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Item number 5, we are seeking approval from the court to cancel bid award number 2014-121, our annual contract for cervical dysplasia services awarded to Planned Parenthood of North Texas.
Move for approval.
Second.
What's the reason for this?
Any?
Statute that comes into effect in September would not allow us to do this particular activity.
Recent changes in the funding requirement made these Planned Parenthood a disqualified vendor, so we have to ask for cancellation.
Any other discussion? Please vote. Motion passes 4-1.
Thank you.
Mr. Riley?
Your Honor, I think we're going to pass on this until after closed.
Then I missed that, didn't I? Did
I
miss it?
apologize.
Okay, no problem. Are there any appointments today?
Yes, sir, Your Honor. I have two appointments. The first one is I would like to appoint Ms. Cynthia Smith from Arlington, Texas, to the Tarrant County CPS Board. And a copy of the resume has been provided to each of you. And I make that in the form of a motion. You want me to do both at the same time? Judge?
That'd be fine.
Okay. And the second appointment is I would like to appoint Mr. Warren Norwood, also an attorney from Arlington, Texas, onto the JPS Board of Managers. And I put that also in a form of a motion.
Andy, I don't think I got a, here I do, I'm sorry, I do, Cynthia Smith.
Yes. And I have also emailed both resumes to the court members. I believe I did that yesterday.
Cynthia Smith replacing somebody?
Yes, she is replacing Ms. McAfee, who has been serving for 3 years or so.
Not a second. At this point in time, we'll move on to the approval of the claims, including the addendum.
Move approval of the claims, including the addendum.
Second. We have a motion and a second to approve the claims, including the addendum. Please vote. Motion passes unanimously. Briefing items, Mr. Manius.
Thank you, Your Honor. We have several items for the court this morning. The first concerns an update on the State Highway 360 Interchange Partnership. Mr. Morris from the North Central Texas Council of Governments is here to address the court at this time.
Judge.
Good morning.
Commissioners.
Michael.
Mr. Second Vice President.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. Administrator. Today I have Lowell Bussell, Deputy District Engineer from the Texas Department of Transportation. Brian Barth would be here, but he's been called to Austin with regard to this project. We're here as a funding partner, but TxDOT really needs to get credit for getting State Highway 360 to construction after about 40 years. And this is a loan from TxDOT to the region. It is to complete 360 south of Green Oaks all the way to 287, including the first phase of the interchange at 287 and the continuous frontage roads north and southbound. It is a tolled facility, and the item before you today is TxDOT was willing to fund 9 thoroughfare streets, bridge structures that go over 360 at a base level, and has asked the local governments that if you wish to have more than the base, the ultimate 4- and 6-lane cross-sections, we have gotten you prices for those. You can put your money into the program, and we'll build those thoroughfare streets now much cheaper than in the future. Remember, 360 main lanes aren't there now, so to build them without an active toll road underneath or freeway, it's a lot less expensive than to make these improvements in the future. So the cities have been working on this since the spring. We have a unique situation where the city boundary line between Arlington and Grand Prairie is on the western side of State Highway 360. It's not in the middle, and I'll show you the financial implications of that. So as the cities were struggling to come up with the revenues to make what should be the final cross-section of these thoroughfare street bridges, I asked Commissioner Wynn to come in and help monitor this particular situation, and we come before you with a partnership that includes not just the cities and the Regional Transportation Council, but does include the counties. I have a short presentation I'll walk you through. If you go to the first slide, this is the 9. Do I control that?
No, wait a minute, you need to go back one, because Duff, yeah, there you go.
Thank you. So if you look at these 9 thoroughfare streets, the first 4 are in Arlington and in Grand Prairie. The city limit line is on the western edge of 360. The bottom 4 are all within Mansfield. And Matlock crosses 360 very close to 287. So with the introduction of the new interchange, the Matlock connection is not necessary because it's being replaced with the continuous frontage roads. Notice, not really part of this agenda, a pet peeve of mine is how we complicate the driving public with compound names of streets. So when you head southbound, if you're going to one city, it'll be Camp Wisdom, and if you go to another, it's Sublet. Notice the correlation of that when you have cities with city limits on each side.
Kind of like Abrams and Jefferson, or Division
Correct.
in Maine, or...
And as you remember, when we did Chisholm Trail, we requested when that built that it not be called 2 or 3 different names up and down the corridor to confuse the public, and obviously that was corrected on Chisholm Trail. So here's the financial breakout. The cities on their own, Arlington at almost 1.2, Mansfield at 10. Notice how Arlington and Mansfield isn't 50-50 because of the city boundary line. The Regional Transportation Council, in their last meeting, approved $7 million. So the Regional Transportation Council is in for about a quarter. The incremental cost of the baseline bid to the total cross-section necessary for the future is $28 million. And we're down to now $3 million. Everyone else is in. So I've asked Commissioner Wynn, in mostly revenue from his district, some revenue from the county judge, to go in for about 10%, or $3 million, as part of this partnership program. This would permit...
Are these from y'all's discretionary
Yes, sir.
accounts?
This would permit the final cross-section to be built now, so the structures can go in at the same time as the main lanes, and we're not widening thoroughfare streets under an active facility. Now, why is this important? This is important because the Regional Transportation Council is taking on the risk of repaying these bonds or loans back to the state of Texas. So Texas is loaning the region $300 million. We're paying the state back. The Regional Transportation Council wishes to not have any impact to the flow of traffic on 360 when it opens, because that would be a financial risk to them. Why we're proposing $7 million. The question to you would be, well, why should the county put in any revenue? All of the excess revenue on this project, once this loan is paid back, remember, TxDOT builds the project. North Texas Tollway Authority will operate and maintain it. We pay TxDOT back for their loan. We pay NTTA to operate and maintain it. 100% of the excess revenue will go to projects in the western side of the region, with Tarrant County being a major player. So you have a vested interest in the success of the project because over time, you have outside revenue sources that can help build continued transportation projects in the future.
So the source of repayment of the debt is toll?
Is toll revenue from the users on the corridor.
And it's actually, for all intents and purposes, that debt is being furnished by TxDOT.
That's correct. Let me show you the pro forma on the project. These are our revenues, which are more conservative than TxDOT and NTTA's revenues. So the green part of this curve is a very conservative number compared to our two partners. The bottom graph, TxDOT loan repayment, this is $300 million plus their interest. Notice how there is no payment for the first 5 years, a low payment for the next 5 years, and then the regular payment. This is a typical structure of a TIFIA loan that we would get. And in the beginning, the purple part is the operation and maintenance of the corridor, toll collection and obviously maintaining it. In the green is the excess revenue. So notice in the beginning we are capturing revenue, banking revenue for a rainy day fund as we move forward. 1 or 2 or 3 years it goes over, but it's cash flowed in advance. And then at some point in the future, we would be released, the RTC would be releasing revenues to the western side of the region to fund additional projects. What our staff communicated to the Regional Transportation Council on was we did not want a city to come in 21 or 23 or 24 and say, you know what, we'd like to now widen our bridge, and now we got, state laws that you can't hang beams over an active freeway or toll road corridor as a result. So that would affect that revenue stream, probably more so than the revenue we're putting into the project. TxDOT also negotiated unbelievably low costs for these interchanges. In fact, I think the winning contractor, TxDOT's winning contractor, set them so low because it would be a lot easier to build them now than build them in the future. So the public sector's interest is met because the cost of these incremental improvements would only go up over time. So I wanted to publicly thank Commissioner Wynn. We have projects in all of your commissioners' districts. This is a very innovative partnership that we bring before you, but it is to actually build today the final cross-sections of the 8 thoroughfare streets where the cities are paying a majority of that cost. Arlington 1.2, Mansfield 10, Grand Prairie 7. But the incremental cost looked like not in the best interest of the public long term. I thought the responsibility RTC was more significant than the county, so we put in 7, and we're here today requesting the county to submit 3. And after 40 years, finally get 360 to its final cross-section as part of this program. Judge, I'll stop there and take any questions any of you have. Commissioner?
Michael, I just want to make a comment. This is, if you're a member of the RTC, Glenn and I, or many of you have been to the meetings, we kind of call this the Michael Morris magic, but it's not really magic. It's really more of your ability to put together partnerships. And that's why this works. You've got 5 entities involved. Everybody pays some, and we get a project done that's of huge consequences to our whole region. And for that, I thank you. It's another great project that's going to get done and ease our traffic flow and congestion, lower our congestion, for the next 30, 40, 50 years. Thank you.
Commissioner, well, you don't realize that we're so close to it now. The ability of cities, county, the regional transportation, and TxDOT to work in an integrated, throw your name badge away partnership. We are so close to it, we don't realize how great it is until it's gone. And it eventually will be gone, and it'll be like other parts of the country where people write angry letters to each other and sue each other and do horrible things. In this region is building billions of dollars worth of projects because we throw our name badge away and we create communication and partnership focused on the interest of the public and move forward in a partnership way. And it's not a coincidence that 2 of you will be presidents of NACO. That's not a coincidence. It comes from a set of leaders, all 5 of you, who are willing to take a leadership position in public service at great risk to you, usually financially and what the public thinks about you on a day-to-day basis. Those of us not elected sometimes wonder if we're going to be able to go in the house at the end of the day or have to sleep on the couch. But it is truly, Commissioner, this partnership that is why all the orange barrels are in this particular region. And here's just another example of that. And we have one in each of your commissioners' districts recently.
Michael, I've been on the court for about 5 years, right? And I have heard a lot of good things about you and how you bring people together and how you found very creative ways to get projects through the goal line. And during our last several meetings with the various stakeholders on this particular project, I witnessed firsthand how you went about bringing people together, how you share credit and give credit away, and how you were very sensitive but direct in addressing the equity issue. of this project. And I was very impressed with your leadership and your ability to bring about collaboration and partnership, but yet maintain a very even and fair arrangement. So I appreciate you for that, and thank you for bringing this deal together and through the goal line.
I appreciate those comments.
And I would just remind the court that we originally initiated the study of that corridor, and when we took it to TxDOT and to NTTA, they both said this is something that we ought to be doing. That was all kind of initiated. Well, Senator Harris had a little bit to do with it. He was chewing on all of us to get that thing done. But even in the beginning, we thought it was going to be a smaller version, but because, again, of TxDOT's negotiations and work, it has meant that we're doing a lot more than what I think any of us really thought we were going to be able to do at the beginning.
Supporting your point, Judge, we never thought we'd be able to build the main lanes all the way to 287 and build the continuous frontage roads south of the railroad track and build what is probably one of the most dangerous locations in the county is the currently old access point of 287 to the existing frontage road at 360. The first phase of the new interchange is also built and has a baseline level of thoroughfare street improvements for the 9 cross streets. And now the local partners come back and build a complete project, leaving median width for widening the project over time. It's a terrific partnership, and I wanted Lowell to be here because TxDOT really needs to be given credit for the great job they've done on this corridor.
This is great here at the other end of 360R, there at the I30 intersection. That has also been basically set as the top priority for our funds coming in beginning, I guess, next year.
October this year, is that right, Lowell? The 360 interchange will be let. Over $200 million, the old missing interchange from the old toll road at 360 and 30. That project will be let in another 2 months. At the benefit of the Proposition 1 funds the citizens voted on in November to finally get that interchange to construction.
So it's still an exciting time, and we still have projects to go, but these were major projects, and the one we've got going on at north of I-35 is north I-35 out of downtown is also great. GK, do we have this up for action today, or are we going to put this on the agenda and bring it to us in the next couple of weeks?
We're going to put it on an action agenda. However, we will once again touch base with TxDOT to begin the La Pampa issue, and transportation is going to take the lead on that.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Judge, if I could give you one final comment. You talked earlier about the economic development that occurs. That economic development occurs largely because of the partnership that Commissioner Fickus and Commissioner Wynn talked about with regard to building the transportation structure. It is not a coincidence that developers and businesses come back at General Motors, at North Fort Worth, with regard to commitments of improvements recently on 35W. Transportation leads economic development, and it's nice to see the economic development result of the transportation investments that are made in the region.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mike.
Thank you.
Nothing happens till the road gets built to get you there.
Right.
Members of the court,
Look at
we can
Collin
go
County.
to item B. This concerns the Tarrant County Heart Walk. Mr. Tenasia is here to address the court at this time.
So this is what that picture out there was about.
That's
right. I was going to figure that out before this thing was over with.
That is right. So, I wanted to kind of bring you back. A few months ago, we talked about the county health rankings, and 2 major issues that they outlined were health problems in our community. One was smoking, especially among adults. About 22% of our county are smokers, and that's a major problem. Also, they outlined that obesity was a major concern in our community. About 1/3 of our county is considered obese, and about 50 to 60% folks in our county are considered overweight. Then I recently read a report on obesity across the nation, and sliced down to Tarrant County data, and they were looking at other factors that lead into it. Sedentary lifestyle. About 1/4 of our county is considered leading an absolute sedentary lifestyle. So we, in public health, have several programs that address certain things. We have a Freedom from Smoking program, which is a free educational program. It actually complements the JPS nicotine replacement program. Both are district funding projects, and we're trying to encourage folks to enroll in that free smoking cessation program. Also, we have other issues in the county. We did some studies and found out that even though it's recommended that people eat fruits and vegetables of 5 servings a day, about 2/3 of our county, about 75% of folks, don't get their 5 servings in during each day. We have a program in public health called Live a More Colorful Life that teaches people about how to incorporate fruits, vegetables, grains, whole grains into their diet every day to get better at eating healthy. But we also noticed that in our community, about 1/3 of people have high blood pressure that is diagnosed by a medical provider. About 1 in every 12 individuals has diabetes that is diagnosed by a medical provider. And we have programs that address those individually. There's a program called Chronic Disease Self-Management that teaches people how to better take care of their chronic issues. But what was missing, and within public health, we had launched, a program to encourage our staff to walk on a regular basis. But what was missing was a county-wide platform to encourage people to make walking a healthy part of their life. Because walking will help reduce blood pressure, it will help control weight, it will help, encourage you to, live a more healthy life, and hopefully encourage the proper, habits of taking care of your health by eating healthy and walking right and exercising. So when the American Heart Association approached us to, again, partner for the American Heart Walk in the September, we thought that was a great opportunity for the county to show leadership and make a call to our residents that we must take walking as a routine part of our life and make it a healthy choice. I partnered with Ann Farmer, and she promptly redirected us to the Wellness Committee in HR. Amber Norris and Janelle Lee have been sort of the brain behind this operation. But we are coming together as a county team instead of departmental teams. We're going to have one large county team called the Flying Pigs, because when pigs fly, miracles happen. So we're counting on those miracles to happen in our community. And so
us pigs get to lead the way.
That's right.
What you're saying?
Right. And we're actually kicking off our call for action with a nice breakfast this Thursday at 7:30 at
Plenty of biscuits and gravy?
No, there will be healthy choices there. Fruits and vegetables available.
If I'm going to walk, I need biscuits and gravy.
That's right. So on this Thursday, actually, at the Family Law Center, we're kicking off with a breakfast at 7:30 to talk about our participation as a county in the American Heart Association's Heart Walk, which is coming up on September 12th. It's a Saturday morning. I think the walk starts at 9 a.m. very promptly, but the teams are requested to organize at about 8:30. And it's at the Will Rogers Memorial Complex.
12th.
So that's a change in venue from previous years where it was in the stockyards. So this time around, we'll actually have a booth and a tent there, and our team will participate in that walk. So each department will have a sort of a local representative in their department who will make sure that the participants are registered. We're also doing a fundraiser to make sure that we participate in a financial way as well. Our goal is about $10,000 and about 100 walkers that we're hoping we accumulate from within our county staff. So there will be some promotional items available for sale, and Amber and Janelle will have all the details on Thursday. There will be information packets available. But I wanted to use the opportunity to make a call to you as leaders, our department heads, and our staff to show leadership to our county residents and encourage them to come participate in this walk and make walking a healthy part of your daily life.
You said Will Rogers?
Yes, so we're Rogers Memorial Complex.
We're going to pay our $10 to park and then go walk?
I think there's, if there's questions about parking, they have some details about that as well. Any other?
Maybe they'll donate the $10 to parking to the American Heart Walk.
Yeah, right.
And at 8:30 is when we're supposed to meet as a group.
Right, and that's on September 12th. So if you're participating in the walk, 8:30 we'll meet as a group, and we'll hopefully have our T-shirts with the Flying Pigs logo on there as a team logo. And but the breakfast, like I said again, is this Thursday at the Family Law Center, second floor. Starts at 7:30 in the morning, lasts till about 9 o'clock. Any other questions that I can help answer?
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Our last issue is item number C. This is a legislative update. This will be the federal legislative update. Mr. Pikes is here to address the court at this time.
Good morning, everybody, commissioners. Mr. Manies, thank you all for having us. First of all, thanks to all of you. I think almost everybody has now joined us on a trip to Washington at some point, and Mr. Brooks has been there 2 or 3 times with us.
He'll be there a lot more
I was going
over
to say,
the
with
next
his
4
additional
years.
duties now, we're going to be using him even more.
I want to thank you, Casey, for coming down and doing some speech writing and the other things you did to help us along the way in that campaign. Thank you.
Happy to be there and happy to help out. It's a great occasion. Let me give you a brief overview of where we are and what the next couple of months are going to look like. Congress will be in session this week, perhaps next, although there's some debate about that. Then they'll be on August recess, so we'll have a little bit of a break, although we'll still be doing our meetings at the staff level during August. And then September, things will pick up significantly. Let me briefly touch on a couple of our major topics that we're working on. Transportation obviously is a big item. I've sent out a couple of email updates to you on the Highway Trust Fund, which we continue to be very involved in those conversations. The House has passed a 5-month extension through December 31st. Ways and Means Chairman Ryan is hoping that creates time to discuss a 6-year extension. In the meantime, last night, Senator McConnell on the Senate side proposed doing a longer-term extension, although probably not a 6-year extension. So there's still some jockeying going back and forth between the two chambers. The current extension runs out on July 31st, so they have all of 10 days to get this resolved. They'll extend it in all likelihood and then spend the next few months discussing hopefully a longer-term solution, which we continue to be advocating for. And we continue to monitor our priorities on road funding in the appropriation process as well. I want to spend most of our time talking about health care and the waiver, which is where we are focused very heavily right now. We have been, with all of your help, doing meetings the last few months. In the last 2 months, I added it up. We've done what we call touches, 42 touches. So these are either meetings, phone calls, letters, emails, where we are meeting with congressional offices and staffers, making the case for the extension of the waiver. That's kind of been phase 1. We're now preparing phase 2, which is where we're going to arm our allies on the Hill with facts about the compelling nature of the waiver and the need for it to be extended. We're doing this in terms of fact sheets and impact statements we're working on with our friends at JPS. We're also trying to create fact sheets that are specific to the congressional members so that they see how this impacts them in their district, both financially and in terms of performance and success stories. So we're working on that right now. The waiver actually the extension will be filed in September. So we've got a little bit of time to get all of our evidence together. We're working on that now. And then in September is probably when we're going to ask a couple of you, maybe all of you, to come back with us as we start really pounding the pavement and making the case once the extension is formally filed, that we need to get this thing renewed, and here are the reasons why. So we're working very hard to build the evidence. We're working very hard on our contacts on the Hill. We're working also with HHSC in Austin and with outside groups, including the Texas Hospital Association, Taylor Coffee, and those folks, to make sure that we have a coordinated effort to speak with one voice and to be as effective as we can be. And then finally, our administrative items. There's a number of issues that we've been working on, as you know. Commissioner Wynn was up a couple of weeks ago with us, where he met with Jamie Suskin, Jason Van Beek from the Oversight Committee. We've been following up with them. We've got Mr. Petri coming back up. in August. We're going to do hopefully some meetings at the FCC on the 911 texting issue. The Eagle Mountain issue that we've been working with Commissioner Johnson on, we're trying to build a public safety file right now of examples of why this is a public safety issue and why it needs to be changed. We're working with Commissioner Johnson's staff on that. And then we're going to go back to the Texas National Guard and present those findings and try to get them to work with us on resolving that. So that's a very 30,000-foot level, broad view of where we are. A lot going on, and we're about to get really, really busy as we head into September. So you'll be hearing from us a lot more, and we'll be asking you to come up and join us even more. Let me stop there and take any questions or comments.
Any questions? Thanks, Casey.
Thank you.
Thank you, Casey.
Your Honor, that's all we have this morning. I would know we do have an audience participation.
We do have Miss Laura Perkins, or Jenkins, excuse me. Would you please come forward?
Thank you very much for this opportunity. As I understand, I have about 3 minutes. And in my 3 minutes, I want to share with you and Tarrant County that my son, Roy Adams, has been incarcerated since 2005. He was sentenced to 12.5 years for intoxication manslaughter in the death of Grapevine police officer Darren Medlin. However, my son was not drunk. We have ultimate remorse for the Medlin family, and especially for his children, and they've even contacted me in the last 3 or 4 years. My son was not drunk, but I call it Tarrant County justice because it was a team effort that made him drunk. This horrific accident happened as a result of him having an epilepsy seizure. And I can't go into all the details in 3 minutes, but if you go to the website, justiceforroyjr.com, justice, the number 4, royjr.com, you will hear more and see more about why my son was not drunk. But the team effort that was led by Richard Alford, the team efforts that was around the blood draw, because the blood draw shows up as .11. The Euless police officer took my son to the hospital, and the nurse testified that my son, she didn't think my son was drunk, and she testified she didn't smell any alcohol either. She said he was horribly sad and frightened. The police officer brought the blood draw back to the police department, put it in an envelope that was to go to the DPS. Instead, Richard Alford had it taken to team effort of the Tarrant County Medical Examiner's Office. Now, you might say that is logical. Maybe, there was a police officer who's died, and we want to make sure we have all the answers. But the nurse testified again that if they wanted it done right away, they could have had it done that night at the hospital. The other part that really solidifies our rationale about this team effort was the first police officer who showed up at the scene and talked with my son, Euless police officer Deanna Ramsar. And she testified in court that the reason my son does not show up on video that was shown in court. Remember, she's the first officer. She has the camera in a car. You see her getting out of a car, and she passes in front of a car. My son does not show up on the tape. And she says she turned off her tape before she got out of the car, and it was muscle memory. But we found out that it was edited and altered only 3 or 4 years ago. We have gone through every judicial or legal setting that we could go to the point where our lawyer says, we're not taking any more of your money. So I'm doing this, and I'll be here for the next 2.5 years, because my son has 2.5 more years. My plan is that everybody in Tarrant County and Dallas County will know about Justice Tarrant County style. And I don't do this without trepidation, because I kind of feel like I am a target, but justice deserves targets. And I feel like I'm a target from the Tarrant County DA, maybe, because maybe I'm highlighting him all the time. But I'm also concerned about Gina Medlin, because I know how horrific she was hurt and the pain, and I heard her on the stand shouting that my son was a cop killer. I'm just concerned about my safety, and I want you to know that. And for the next 2.5 years, I will be in front of you, in front of any, I've already been in front of the Euless City Council and the Grapevine City Council, but I'll be going back there. I'll be updating you on my progress, so stay tuned. Thank you.
Ms. Jenkins, we appreciate you being here today.
Thank you very much for your time.
And you know that I'm sure that they may or may not have told you, because we don't have it on the agenda, we cannot respond at this time.
Yeah, I understand that. I'm surprised that you even say anything.
Well,
but thank you.
I would say that please talk with our administrator, Mr. Maney is here,
Okay.
and, we may be able to get some additional information, or
Oh, sure.
I can tell you that the folks that are here from the DA's office, I see our DA scribbling as she speaks.
I'm hopeful that under her leadership, the DA will, because I'm out there in front of her team every month, and when the people come out and they talk to me, they are appalled. They are appalled. Our citizens in Tarrant County deserve better.
We appreciate you being here today.
Thank you, and I will.
Thank you. Now, if you wouldn't mind, would you please enter into the record your full name and your address?
Oh, absolutely. My name is Laura Jenkins, and my address is 8101 Canyon Oak Drive, 8101 Canyon Oak Drive, North Richland Hills, Texas, 76182.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Jenkins.
There being no additional business at this time, then we will recess our open meeting and proceed to closed sessions to discuss items exempted under Section 551.071, 072, 074, 076, and 087 of the Texas Government Code. From our closed session, we'll now address the following matters.
Your Honor, we have 2 items to bring to you this afternoon. One is on transportation. Ms. Green is going to make that presentation.
Your Honor, we're requesting the Commissioners Court to approve an unimproved property contract with Andrea C. Blackstone for the sale of real property described as Tract TC02 containing .927 acres out of the James McDonald Survey, abstract number 997, and being located at 6298 Newt Patterson Road.
Move for approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Members of the Court, we can go to the Administrator's section, item number 5. We're requesting that the Commissioners Court approve the use of Lynn Kelly Law Firm, P.C. as outside counsel to assist in human resources matters and authorize the County Administrator to sign the letter of engagement.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you, Your Honor. That's all we have at this time.
There being no further business, we stand adjourned.